Welcome to the Economist in Your Ear podcast. We spend so much time fixated on this race for the next great AI supermodel. The quest for AGI, these trillion-parameter breakthroughs. But here's a thought. Are we so focused on that cutting edge that we're completely missing where the real technological battle's being fought?
That is precisely the question we're looking at today. We're trying to challenge that simple narrative of a U.S.-China tech race that's just about who builds the smartest model first.
Exactly. What we're unpacking is this really significant strategic pivot coming out of Beijing. The idea is that China is shifting its focus away from just frontier models and toward massive society-wide adoption. They're calling it the AI Plus initiative.
It's not just about building them, it's about embedding them.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Right. So we need to dissect that claim, look at the advantages they think they have, and also ask a tough question. Does just forcing adoption actually guarantee the transformation they're betting on? So let's start with the framing. Where does a shift like this even come from?
Well, you have to understand the official narrative in China. Technological capability is tied directly to national destiny. They constantly bring up their history, the period of stagnation from the Opium Wars to 1949.
As a kind of cautionary tale.
It's a powerful one. It creates this profound, state-driven sense of existential urgency. And what's fascinating is how that urgency leads to different goals.
How so?
In the U.S., so much of the conversation, the venture capital, it's all about AGI. Superintelligence, the singularity. China's stated goal is much more, pragmatic. They're putting greater emphasis on accelerating the adoption of existing AI systems.
So it's about deep penetration, making it functional right now, rather than chasing some theoretical peak power.
Exactly. Right. And this isn't just talk. It's being formalized in this incredibly aggressive national roadmap. We're expecting to see it codified in the next 5-year plan around March 2026.
And the pace is, it's dizzying.
It really is. I mean, by 2027, and that's just around the corner, they expect broad AI use in 6 huge areas: research, industry, healthcare, education.
Consumers, digital government, basically the entire core machinery of the state and the economy.
Within 3 years. But then you look at the later target.
That's where it gets truly ambitious. By 2030, they're saying AI will be as widespread as electricity or the internet. Just think about that level of saturation.
And the end goal for 2035 is this vision of an intelligent society where AI is shaping culture, how people interact, everything.
So that's the AI Plus initiative. It's the implementation strategy.
Right. Think of it as a massive application layer. It's explicitly designed to mirror how fast they rolled out Internet Plus back in the 2010s. It's all about creating scenarios. AI plus energy to manage the grid, AI plus manufacturing for factories.
And that must reframe what successful AI research even looks like over there.
It does, completely. The leading labs are now prioritizing these scenario-specific models. They're not building a generic all-purpose LLM that can do 1,000 things okay. They're building a specific model to, say, just optimize steel production.
Which would be much smaller, faster, cheaper to run.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the very heart of this adoption strategy.
Okay, this sounds incredibly ambitious, but you can't just mandate that something works. So what structural advantages do they think they have to pull this off?
The first one is just sheer scale. You've got this massive digital economy and a population that's already incredibly comfortable with app-based life. Think about their payment apps, for instance.
So that creates a perfect testing ground, a massive feedback loop.
Billions of data points flowing back to developers instantly. And then there's the regulatory side, which is interesting. We usually think of AI regulation as being restrictive.
But the article we're looking at points out a different angle.
It does. Many of their labs are actually encouraged to release open access versions of their models. This encourages broad experimentation and customization, which is exactly what you need.
Right. If you want to embed AI in thousands of different local factories or power grids, you need local engineers to be able to tinker with the models themselves.
Nice.
Okay, but here's the part that I find really compelling. The U.S. export controls on advanced AI chips, that was supposed to cripple their ambitions. How on earth does a hardware constraint become a strategic advantage?
It's a fantastic question because it's so counterintuitive. It creates a kind of positive feedback loop. It forces efficiency.
What do you mean?
Well, if you can't just buy endless pallets of the latest, most powerful NVIDIA chips, your labs are incentivized to focus on smaller, much more computationally efficient models.
Because they have no other choice.
They have no other choice. And those smaller models use less energy, they cost dramatically less to run, which is perfect. If your whole strategy is about embedding them in everything, everywhere, it fits the AI plus strategy perfectly.
But wait, doesn't that put a cap on what they can do? If you can't access the frontier chips, doesn't that mean your AI just has a lower ceiling? I mean, how do you get to an intelligent society with less powerful models?
And that is the core tension. That's the big bet. Yes, they might be sacrificing some of that generalized cognitive power you get from a massive model. But the strategy seems to be that they aren't trying to win the general intelligence race.
They're trying to win the application race, the integration race.
Exactly. A highly optimized, smaller model that successfully runs the state power grid 99% of the time is, you could argue, more valuable for national productivity than a giant model that can write poetry but costs a fortune to run.
So it's about utility over raw theoretical capability. That makes sense. It's an investment in diffusion.
Absolutely. And you see this in their focus on standards. They're aiming to create more than 50 national and industrial AI standards by 2026. That's about building the bedrock for mass adoption. It lowers the friction for the entire economy.
Okay, so this brings us to a more critical interpretation. This whole idea, China focusing on adoption, the US on frontier models, it's a useful frame, but we have to push back a bit, right?
We have to. It's a bit too neat, a bit too binary.
Does this really mean China has given up on the AGI chase? That just seems unlikely.
It's extremely unlikely. They're still pouring vast sums of money into large models, into infrastructure, into self-reliance on chips and algorithms. The picture is much, much more blended.
Let's challenge the core assumption of the plan itself then. Does adoption automatically create value? A government can mandate that you use AI, but that doesn't mean it's going to transform productivity.
And there's evidence of that gap. There was a fascinating survey of Chinese engineering students. They all started using generative AI tools way more.
Okay.
But they reported that their actual academic performance remained largely unchanged. That's a perfect example of the gap between use and transformation.
So why does that gap exist?
Because copying an answer from an AI is easy. That's just use. But to get real gains transformation, you have to redefine entire workflows. You have to retrain people. Think about the cost of integrating this into these huge, rigid, state-owned legacy systems.
You don't fix a broken business process by just automating it. You just make the broken process run faster.
Precisely, which is a huge potential bottleneck. And then there's the timeline itself. An intelligent society by 2035. That's barely a decade away.
It feels very aggressive. Can they really pull off that kind of radical change without hitting some major systemic walls?
It's a huge gamble. You could see serious structural drag, talent shortages, for one. Who's going to integrate all of this? And you have massive regional differences. Shenzhen might be ready, but what about less developed provinces? That could really slow the whole thing down, no matter what the central government wants.
So the takeaway is, while this idea of a divergence in strategy is useful, the real world is probably a lot messier. There's likely a lot of convergence happening too.
So to sort of synthesize all this for you, the core diagnosis does seem to hold. China is making this very pragmatic shift from just let's build the best model to let's embed AI everywhere. And given their domestic market and, their demographic challenges, an integration-first strategy makes a lot of sense.
So what does this all mean for you listening, especially if your work involves things like modeling or risk assessment?
I think there are two big takeaways. First, this AI plus push means we're going to see a flood of these highly domain-specific AI applications. Things for optimizing energy grids, for urban management, for industrial quality control. The focus is shifting away from just generic LLMs.
And the second point?
The second is just the sheer pace of it. The environment in China, the data access, the way the state coordinates with industry, it's all set up to move much faster than in the West. So for sensitive applications like disaster simulation, you have to realize they're creating this incredibly fast-moving, high-integration test bed.
Right.
So the key insight here is that winning the integration race takes a completely different toolkit than winning the research race. It's about standards, diffusion, skills, and China seems to be mobilizing all of it at once. They're betting that ubiquity will beat peak intelligence in the long run.
Which brings us to a final, pretty provocative thought. If they do succeed with this AI plus model, and they've already announced an AI plus international cooperation initiative,
Right.
Could this adoption-first, utility-driven model for technology become something they export? A new paradigm for how other nations structure their own tech rollouts? That's something we need to keep a very close eye on.
That potential for exported governance. That might just be the most significant long-term consequence of this entire shift.
Thanks for listening. Follow us for daily insights into world affairs, and don't forget to like, comment, and share.